Envision yourself solitary on a desolate island, with nothing but the haunting forest noises and the constant pounding of the waves for company. One man had to deal with this horrible truth for more than 4 years. An actual castaway whose astonishing struggle against insurmountable obstacles will make you wonder how strong the human spirit can be, is the subject of this disturbing true story. What follows is an eerie account of how the lonely struggle of a single man on a deserted island became the basis for a classic adventure tale. Alexander Selkirk, who was born in the sleepy Scottish village of Lower Largo in 1676, was doomed to a dangerous and exciting life. Even though he had a troubled youth due to his defiant nature, it was his desire to become a seafarer that ultimately set him on the path that would alter the course of his life irrevocably. Alexander Selkirk's career at sea began with the role of buccaneer. After setting sail from Ireland in 1703, he became a member of the expedition commanded by the English privateer William Dampier. They were sent out during the War of the Spanish Succession to attack enemy ships, armed with letters of marque. Under Captain Thomas Stradling's command, Selkirk was on the Cinque Ports, while Dampier was in charge of the St. George. Their fleet engaged a French ship that had escaped and alerted Spanish soldiers after a perilous voyage around Cape Horn. They temporarily regained hope after capturing a merchant ship loaded with goods during a botched raid in Panama. After Dampier took the essential supplies of bread, brandy, wine, and sugar, he promptly removed Cook from command of the captured ship. Captain Stradling of the Cinque Ports decided to split ways with Dampier by May 1704, paving the path for Selkirk's dramatic demise. In order to replenish their water supply, the Cinque Ports reached the uninhabited Juan Fernández archipelago island of Mas e Tierra by September 1704. On multiple occasions, Selkirk and Captain Stradling battled over Selkirk's growing worry for the ship's seaworthiness. In a daring and desperate move, Selkirk declared he would prefer to remain on Mas e Tierra, then continue with Stradling, out of fear for his life if the expedition persisted in its present form. Stradling accepted his offer and abandoned him on the deserted island, so he unknowingly exchanged one set of perils for another. On second thought, Selkirk pleaded for his return, but Stradling, determined to set a good example for the crew, declined, effectively executing him. The terrible realization of Selkirk's solitude hit him as the Cinque Ports faded beyond the horizon. A gun, an ancient hatchet, a cooking kettle, a knife, carpenter's tools, his Bible, and a few articles of clothes and bedding were all he had with him as he stood alone hundreds of miles from the closest settlement. The island, untamed and full of strange sounds at night, was a wild and unruly place. In the early days, Selkirk had a great deal of anxiety and doubt. Because of how hostile his new surroundings were, he had to adjust fast. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, he sought sanctuary in a cave on the shore, and subsisted on any wild foods he could find. For days, Selkirk peered helplessly at the horizon, consumed by an overwhelming sense of loss, isolation, and remorse. In hindsight, he admitted that he regularly considered suicide. However, a natural invasion ultimately forced him to take action. Hordes of hideous sea lions invaded his beach just as mating season was about to begin, destroying his food supply and driving him farther inland. Despite Alexander's initial distress at venturing into the wild and foreboding bush, this unforeseen prod ultimately brought him deliverance. Cabbage palms, wild turnips, and other native fruits were abundant in the verdant valley behind the beach, which he quickly learned to rely on for his meals. He discovered that previous buccaneers and pirates had abandoned the feral goats. He initially shot them for sustenance, but when his ammunition ran out, he mastered the art of foot capture and created his own traps. Over time, he domesticated some of them and used them for meat and milk. During one such pursuit, Alexander came dangerously close to dying when he slipped and fell off a cliff. He lay in excruciating pain for days at the base before gradually regaining his strength. He almost met his demise here if the goat he was pursuing hadn't been there to catch him. But unstable terrain and rocky cliffs weren't Alexander's sole threats. Colonies of rats the size of his forearm had taken over the island, and as he slept, they bit at his feet and hands, spreading an infection that was untreatable. Luckily, the island's feral cats provided an answer. Some of them Selkirk domesticated and began to sleep with as a peculiar but reassuring buddy. Weeks passed, then months passed, as Alexander continued to adjust to life on his deserted island. From his perch on the lookout, he would ignite signal fires in the hopes of spotting rescue ships, even though he had not seen any since being marooned. Selkirk constructed fortifications beside a creek as the month of October 1704 drew nigh. With the few resources at his disposal, he skillfully fashioned pimento wood cottages and covered them with grass. The goat skins he used for insulation made up for the lack of furnishings in his homes. He made fire with pimento wood and boiled steak in a kettle. He supplemented his diet with lobsters, parsnips, watercress, and parsley, while his pet cats and goats supplied both sustenance and protection. He cherished his Bible and found solace in his devotions, which played a crucial role in maintaining his speech and sanity. His spirits lifted one day as he went about his business and beheld two ships anchored off the coast. His joy quickly turned to fear as he hurried to the shore to meet his possible rescuers. They were Spanish. Recognizing that being captured would result in a harsher penalty than death, torture, or servitude in a salt mine, he retreated into the jungle. A band of men ambushed him as the Spanish sailors scouted the island for supplies. Alexander, who had been exploring the island for months with ease and speed, hid beneath a large leafy tree until they gave up looking. Even Alexander's hiding spot beneath the tree was subject to the searching party's urine at one point. Nonetheless, they went right back to their ship without noticing him. Selkirk's tools and garments wore out as the years passed. He fashioned new blades from an iron barrel hoop he discovered on the sand whenever his original ones wore out. The goat skins he wore were simple but functional, and the volcanic soil he ran on hardened his feet. Another thing that gave him away as a wild, hairy ape was his lengthy, untrimmed beard. Even though Selkirk adapted to his life on his own, he never stopped hoping for help. He had no idea that his destiny was about to take a dramatic turn. William Dampier, who had unintentionally left Selkirk behind, was leading another expedition to plunder the South American coast. On September 1st, 1709, he embarked on a fresh quest from England with the Duke and the Duchess as its sailing companions. They were getting close to Isla Mas a Tierra by the end of January 1710. Finally, after 4.5 long years apart, Selkirk's old friend was going to show up again. Because of his history with the Spanish, Selkirk was now very wary of going too close to the beach without first checking the horizon from his perch. Two ships, identifiable by their rigging as belonging to the British, appeared to him in the distance on February 1st, 1710. He hurried to the beach, lit a signal fire, and frantically waved for help. His heart racing, Dampier dispatched a boat to check the strange fire, unaware that Selkirk was alive. After being alone for 4 years and 4 months, Thomas Dover led the landing party, and when they arrived, Selkirk was so overcome with delight that he could hardly speak. The Duke's captain, Woodes Rogers, made fun of Selkirk by calling him Governor of the Island. With his newfound agility and strength, Selkirk caught goats every day, which helped Rogers' crew recover from scurvy. One may see that solitude and retirement from the world is not such an insufferable state of life as most men imagine, especially when people are fairly called or thrown into it unavoidably, as this man was. Captain Rogers was amazed by Selkirk's physical vitality and mental tranquility. Selkirk was named second mate to the Duke by Rogers, who was impressed by his tenacity. Returning to the sea, Selkirk's passion for privateering was reawakened. The affluent Spanish women who had escaped with their valuables were looted during his daring attack at Guayaquil, in what is now Ecuador, up the Guayas River. He continued his exploits along the Mexican coast, robbing galleons and being instrumental in the capture of a Spanish prize ship. Following this, Selkirk was Captain Dover's sailing master, leading the ship to the East Indies and eventually rounding the world. Selkirk returned to England on October 1st, 1711, after an arduous 8-year absence. The incredible story of Selkirk's survival quickly gained widespread attention. His story of perseverance and transformation made an impression on everyone who heard it, and he returned to England a transformed man. Daniel Defoe's classic work Robinson Crusoe was inspired by his experience. What Alexander Selkirk went through exemplifies how resilient and adaptable the human spirit is. Even in the face of insurmountable odds, his narrative serves as a potent reminder of the resiliency and force that resides within each of us. The Chilean government rechristened Isla Mas Afuera as Alejandro Selkirk Island in 1966, a fitting homage to the man whose remarkable survival tale inspires and captivates us to this day. We appreciate you coming along with us on this historical tour. Please subscribe, like, and comment if you found this story enjoyable. We have more terrifying tales from the past that you will love. Take care until we meet again.